Hey guys, tonight we descend slowly into the cool shadows of a tomb, not one of gold-lined chambers and booby-trapped treasure vaults, but something more ordinary, quieter, a narrow room carved into limestone, long forgotten by time. Dust floats like fine flour through a single shaft of light. You step carefully around fragments of pottery, faded sandals, and there it is, a simple headrest, still supporting the skull of someone who's been resting for a few thousand years longer than you. The pillow is not what you expect, not soft, not plush, not even vaguely huggable. It's stone-polished, pale, and shaped like an elegant half-moon propped on a base. It looks terribly uncomfortable. You would not last one night with this thing under your neck, let alone the entirety of the afterlife. But this, dear listener, is where tonight's story begins. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from, and what time it is for you. Drop that in the comments unless you're already too sleepy. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step deeper into the burial space, low ceiling brushing your shoulder, and feel the weight of centuries pressing gently on your spine. You are surrounded by stillness, the kind that's only earned by generations of silence. The walls here don't echo, they absorb. Your eyes adjust to the gloom. On a shelf carved straight into the stone lies an assortment of personal objects. There's a coal container, its lid still dusted with black powder or reed brush. A faint whiff of something herbal that might once have been perfume or rodent droppings. But the real prize is in the center, the headrest. This one is carved from smooth limestone. Its surface is slightly concave, made to cradle the neck, not the head. You reach out not to touch, just to hover and admire the symmetry. Despite the passage of over 3,000 years, it's intact. No chips, no cracks, just the clean, elegant curve of a forgotten life. Historians still argue whether these headrests were primarily functional or symbolic. Maybe both. What's clear is this: sleeping on one was as much about status as slumber. The wealthy and powerful were sent into the afterlife with these stone cradles beneath their skulls, a sign that they'd earned eternal comfort even if it came in the form of a glorified neck prop. You kneel down beside the burial platform and imagine the person who once lay here. Maybe a minor official, not rich enough for gold, but not poor enough to be buried without a proper pillow. You wonder what they dreamt about in life: politics, grain taxes, whether the neighbor's cat was really a god. Whatever it was, they dreamed with their neck arched 6 inches off the bed. The tomb smells faintly of dry earth and something metallic, like time itself has a scent. You follow the layout of the chamber with your eyes. In the corner, there's a basket with remnants of linen, perhaps once used as bedding, now just threadbare ghosts. You sit quietly and imagine preparing for bed in this long-lost world. First, you'd slip off your sandals, maybe wash your feet in a basin filled by a servant. If you were well off, someone would oil your scalp and comb your hair. If you were less fortunate, you'd slap a wet cloth against your face and hope it did the job. Then, lying down on a mat of woven reeds or fine linen, you'd align your neck with the curve of your headrest, perhaps with a small grunt of discomfort, and let the gods sort out the rest. There's something ritualistic about it all. You feel it. The pillow wasn't just for support, it was an object of meaning. A bridge between life and death, between dreams and waking. It lifted the head, yes, but also, perhaps, the soul. Not all Egyptians used headrests. Some just slept on mats, others had their arms for pillows, but in burials, especially those of status, the headrest appears again and again. Its shape was consistent, a crescent cradle perched atop a narrow base. It resembled a tiny stool or a modern wrist rest at an office desk, except it was tasked with supporting the most important organ of all, your thoughts. You lean back against the wall, head tilted slightly like you're testing one out. The idea of sleeping with your neck lifted sounds strange now, but to them, it might have been second nature. Besides, it kept your head off the hot, insect-prone floor. Bonus: some scholars suggest the design had hygienic purposes: airflow under the neck, fewer lice in your hair, fewer surprises crawling up your nose while you slept. Others think it was purely symbolic, meant to literally and spiritually elevate the head, which housed your identity, your spirit, your connection to the gods. Of course, there's the aesthetic angle, too. Some of these things were gorgeous, carved, ivory, inlaid ebony, headrests engraved with lotus flowers, protective spells, or little figures of Bes the dwarf god of sleep, music, and aggressive dancing. The humble pillow took on meanings far beyond bedtime. As you drift further into the tomb, you wonder, how many people saw their last sunrise knowing their final pillow had already been carved? What did they request? A simple sycamore, or something grander, like lapis inlay, or obsidian accents? Maybe they didn't get a choice, maybe their family chose for them, based on what they could afford and what they thought the dead deserved. You glance back at the limestone headrest and feel a strange fondness for it. In this silent place, it feels more human than most furniture, intimate. It's the last thing someone touched, and the first thing that welcomed them to the long, slow nap of history. Slow nap. The cool stillness of the tomb clings to your skin as you imagine lying down, carefully aligning your neck with the curve of that polished headrest. It feels unnatural at first, even in your mind. No cushion give, no plush comforter, just the calculated firmness of stone or wood lifting your head a few inches above the mat. And yet, there's a strange logic to it. The ancient Egyptians had a particular philosophy of sleep, one that wasn't just about rest, but ritual. Your body wasn't just recovering for another day, it was rehearsing for death. Sleep was, after all, a kind of miniature death, a nightly departure of the soul. And what better way to prepare for the real thing than by sleeping with your neck propped up like a royal corpse? You find yourself now imagining a wealthier chamber, bigger, better lit, not a royal tomb exactly, but not far off. This one smells of incense and myrrh, the dry, crusty echo of it. Gold leaf flakes catch the light, and in the center, laid out with care, is a headrest made not of stone, but alabaster. This pillow is gleaming and faintly translucent, like it might hum if you tapped it. The surface is shaped with the same crescent neck support curve, but it's narrower, more delicate. The base is etched with a lotus blossom. This is not a mass-produced sleep accessory. This is custom work. You lower yourself beside it and imagine the person who owned it, a nobleman, perhaps, or a high-ranking priestess, someone who had the means to commission beauty, even in sleep. Someone who expected their dreams to matter. The alabaster is cool to the touch, to cool, maybe, for the living, but perfect for the eternal. You imagine the weight of your head suspended just so, neck arched in the graceful, unnatural pose we always see in tomb paintings. Flat back, palms facing up, chin lifted slightly as if still in conversation with the gods. Historians still debate the origin of this particular shape. Was it modeled after furniture? Did it evolve from earlier neck supports made of reeds? One theory posits that the headrest mimics the horizon, lifting the head like while rising over the curve of the earth. Others believe the shape was designed purely to keep bugs from crawling into your ears at night. Both are valid motivations, depending on how romantic or practical your worldview is. What's clear, though, is this: not everyone got one like this. Your average Egyptian, say, a servant, a brewer, or a reed mat weaver, wasn't going to be buried with a glistening alabaster neck prop. At best, they might have a wood or clay version. At worst, a rolled-up piece of linen, or nothing, which meant their heads would lie flat in the dust, a final position as humble as their living one. The headrest became a kind of social marker. Not just a tool for sleep, but a message to the living and dead alike. I had status, I had taste. I had the kind of spine that deserved curvature. Thank you very much. And not all headrests were created equal. Some were adjustable, yes, adjustable. You imagine a servant approaching a nobleman's bed, headrest in hand, asking, "Would you prefer high or medium elevation tonight, my lord?" Some had removable bases or interlocking parts. There's even evidence of folding headrests used for travel. Yes, the ancient Egyptian version of a neck pillow. Sorry, airport gift shops, you didn't invent everything. One curious detail: many elite headrests weren't used for actual sleeping. They were reserved exclusively for the dead. A person might own a lavish, beautifully carved headrest that was never touched in life, kept pristine, until the day was placed under their embalmed neck for burial. It's like buying luxury bed linens just to impress your future ghost. Of course, if you were extremely wealthy pharaoh, you might have multiple headrests. Some for ceremonial use, some for display, And some just in case your spiritual double wanted a different feel in the afterlife. No one wants neck cramps in eternity. You shift a little and feel the stone press into your back as if reminding you this was serious business. Sleep was political, religious, aesthetically judged. And nothing symbolized that more than the materials used. Stone, wood, ivory, ebony, alabaster, each came with its own connotations and, naturally, price tag. Stone was durable and cooling, but impersonal. Wood was warmer, but susceptible to insects and time. Ivory was a flex, it required a trade network, a good chunk of silver, and unfortunately an elephant. It also implied that you were worldly, connected, and just exotic enough to be fashionable. Ivory headrests were often carved with tiny scenes, lions, gods, battles, even erotic imagery, although we won't get to detailed PG-13 rules and all. Suffice it to say, dreams weren't always about cosmic symbolism. Sometimes, people just wanted to go to bed happy. Now, imagine you're a middle-class artisan. You've saved, you've got a family, and you commission a nice sycamore headrest for your eventual funeral. It's modest, but well-crafted. Maybe your kid's decorated with tiny blue faience beads. It's not gold, but it's love, and that pillow says just as much as the alabaster one. Maybe more, because it wasn't about how fancy it was. It was about whether it would support you through the longest sleep you ever take. You rest your head against the imagined curve again, and feel the echo of all the necks that have laid this way, bent just so, relaxed just enough, lifted slightly higher than the world around them. Because when you raise your head, even by a few inches, you are no longer just a sleeper. You are a traveler, balanced delicately between life and death. Now, let's shift a little further from alabaster chambers and polished stone. You rise, stretch your dream limbs, and step outside the hush of noble tombs. Instead of temples and gold-leafed headrests, you're walking now among rows of mud brick homes crumbling, sun-dry, warm to the touch. Here, the world smells of bread crusts, animal dung, and smoke from cook fires that never really go out. The Nile sparkles in the near distance, children shout. Chickens do what chickens do. This is not the world of priests and royal embalmers. This is the everyday Egypt of clay pots, woven sandals, and yes, very different pillows. You duck into one of the homes. It's modest. Cool inside, despite the sun. In the corner, there's a sleeping mat woven from date palm leaves. And beside it, a pillow, though that word feels generous. This pillow is a low, rough block of clay, sun-baked, crude, maybe a little chipped at the corners. But someone smoothed its top carefully, shaped it into a small, curved ridge. It's not luxury, it's survival. Unlike the gleaming stone headrests in the tombs, this one is built to be used. And it has been used. The edges are worn smooth where necks once rested. The surface is marked by soot and time, and all from dozens of sleeping scalps. You sit beside it and imagine yourself there not as a guest, but as a resident. You've just finished a long day. Maybe you were weaving baskets or fishing in the marshes. Maybe you spent the morning ankle-deep in river mud, coaxing papyrus stalks into bundles. Your back aches, your fingers are sore, and your eyelids are already halfway closed. You lie down on the mat, and there it is, your pillow. Clay, hard, maybe cool, if you're lucky. It keeps your head just slightly lifted, enough to avoid bugs. Enough to feel like you're not sleeping on the floor, but not much more than that. Historians still argue whether headrests like these were ever meant to last, or whether they were simply molded fresh when needed. Like bread, some clay versions found in archaeological digs seem hastily made, no decoration, no finishing. Others were sturdier, perhaps passed down, perhaps treasured even in their simplicity. And here's the quirky part. Some of these lower-class headrests were multi-purpose. Turned on their side, they could act as a stool, place a pot on top, it's a stand. Need to kneel for prayer, there's your knee rest. In a household with little to spare, your pillow was whatever you needed it to be. There's even evidence that some clay pillows were shaped intentionally like bricks, the same bricks used in construction. Which leads to the delightfully mundane possibility that in some homes, your pillow was literally a building material. Good night, honey, you might say, laying your head on the same object that made up the wall beside you. This isn't the kind of pillow you'd be buried with. It doesn't sparkle, it doesn't impress. But it's functional, honest, earthy in the most literal way. And there's something comforting about that. Like an old t-shirt you refuse to throw out. It may not look like much, but it knows your shape. You glance over at a bundle of linen in the corner and wonder how much cushioning people added. Did they pad their clay headrests with spare fabric? Did they roll a reed mat beneath their necks for comfort, or was sleeping hard simply the default? After all, if you've never known down feathers and memory foam, you don't exactly miss them. There's one curious little artifact on a nearby shelf, a children's headrest, made of cheap wood. It's been chewed at the corners, maybe by a dog or a toddler. You picture a young child falling asleep on this thing, head tilted, dreaming of hippos and beetles and flying boats. If their parents could afford even that tiny headrest, they were doing all right. You reach out and run your finger along the clay. It's rough. Yes, but there's care here. Someone molded this. Someone carried it from kill to home. Someone laid their head on it after a long harvest. This isn't poverty, it's practice, the daily rhythm of people who made do with what they had, and found meaning even in the hard places. Of course, not every headrest was basic. Even among the working class, there were degrees of quality. A particularly skilled potter might shape a pillow for a neighbor. A craftsman with a flair for decoration might add little incised patterns, waves, fish, geometric dots, and once in a while, one of these modest pillows makes it into a tomb, likely for someone who worked hard their whole life and still rated a proper send-off. You lean back, stretching your neck against the imagined curve, and marvel at the spectrum. On one end, gold and ebony, sacred engravings, divine symbolism. On the other, sun-baked clay and the quiet dignity of daily life, and yet they all did the same thing. They lifted heads, they cradled necks, they caught dreams. And maybe, just maybe, they offered the same comfort, because status mattered. Yes, but so did sleep. And in that one shared nightly act, closing your eyes, settling your bones, surrendering to darkness, everyone, from pharaoh to potter, needed something to rest on, even if it was just a brick. You're standing now in a bustling market square. The air hums with voices, the rustle of linen robes, the clink of copper weights being measured on hanging scales. The Nile is somewhere nearby, its scent carried in on a warm, earthy breeze. And in the midst of all this you see it, a table with wooden planks laid out like a showroom. On top, dozens of headrests of every shape, size, and polish. It's the ancient Egyptian version of a mattress store. No sales reps in palace, but a bearded craftsman with ink-stained fingers and a keen eye for social cues. He knows who has coin and who doesn't. You step forward, letting your eyes skim across the merchandise. Some headrests are elegantly carved, their arches smooth and balanced like musical instruments. Others are chunkier, practical, no-nonsense sleep tools, not heirlooms. But what you notice first isn't the headrests themselves, it's the arrangement. They're grouped by material, yes, but also subtly by audience. Over there, the elite section: ivory, ebony, imported cedar from the Levant. Decorative inlays, maybe a tiny engraving of a cat lounging under a tree. Very aspirational, very expensive. To the left, the middle-class favorites: solid sycamore, some personalized with painted names or hieroglyphs indicating the owner's family line. You pick one up, it's lighter than it looks. The base is hollow, likely to save on wood. Clever, you imagine someone haggling for it, palms raised in protest at the price, until a discount is offered for good karma. And finally, on the far edge of the stall, a small pile of irregular shapes. Some cracked, some discolored. These are likely reject seconds sold cheap to temple assistants or young scribes with tight budgets. One is even propped up with what looks like old rope, the ancient equivalent of duct tape. You try to picture how a bear chose a headrest back then. Did they lie down on the spot? Did they press the arch of the pillow against their collarbone to test the fit, or did they just trust the shopkeeper's pitch? Perfect for warding off evil dreams, he might say, gesturing toward one with a carved figure of Bes, the dwarf god, known for protecting sleepers. Historians still debate how seriously people took these carvings. Were they spiritual insurance or just trendy decor? You lift the Bes headrest gently, it's warm from the sun. The god's tongue is stuck out in defiance. his squat frame braced in a perpetual guarding stance. You imagine a mother buying this for her child, hoping it might keep away fevers or snakes or restless spirits of jealous ancestors. This wasn't the only figure carved into pillows. Some featured Anubis, watching with jackal eyes. Others showed Hathor, the Kellard goddess of joy and love, an odd combination to stare at before sleep, but comforting in its way. These carvings weren't just pretty, they were prayers. Sculpted whispers of keep me safe while invulnerable, and that vulnerability was real. In Egyptian belief, dreams were more than subconscious theater, they were literal messages, omens, sometimes even journeys. Your soul the ba could travel in your sleep, flitting like a bird between worlds. A poorly chosen headrest that might let something in. Something you'd rather keep out. You glance back at the display, now seeing it differently. Not just as furniture, but as ritual tools, like choosing a wand in a wizard shop. There's a weight to it. You don't just buy a headrest, you commit to it. Beside the stall, a young woman is bartering fiercely. She wants a headrest with a carved lotus, but can only afford the plain sycamore one. The shopkeeper shrugs, then throws in a small painted scarab charm, a consolation prize. You watch her walk away, the plain headrest tucked under her arm like a sleeping promise, and just then, the seller turns to you. Offers a sly smile, holds up one shaped like a crocodile. Just a little joke, perhaps, or maybe a warning. You decline politely, because here's a secret. Pillows in Egypt weren't just functional or symbolic. They were personal, deeply so. People slept with them for years. Tossed them down, took them to their tombs. You didn't buy headrest lightly, just as today. You wouldn't casually hand someone your favorite pillow. Historians still aren't sure whether people used more than one headrest in their lifetime. Did you upgrade? Did you grow out of your childhood one? Or was it a lifelong companion, like a well-loved pair of shoes? There's one account of a woman whose headrest was repaired multiple times, its base reattached with bits of copper. Not discarded, not replaced, mended, because comfort, once earned, isn't something you give up easily. You crouch now, trailing your fingers across the wooden surfaces, thinking about all the necks these curves once held. People with dreams, fears, ambitions, callous feet, and favorite jokes. People who argued over prices, who slept curled on reed mats, who died clutching the same headrest they used every night. And maybe, people not so different from you. The sun starts to sink behind the mud brick roofs, and the market stalls begin to close. The seller stacks the remaining headrests, wrapping a few in linen for tomorrow's trade. You step back into the alley, hearing the muffled clatter of hooves and the distant call to evening prayers. In your hand, you carry a headrest, imaginary, yes, but shaped by every story you've absorbed, not gold, not grand, just right, because tonight, your dreams are going to need somewhere to land. The wind kicks up a little dust as you wander deeper into the city, and now the buildings shift again. Larger, more ornate. Tainted walls, finely carved door frames, even a lattice window here and there. You're not in the workers' quarter anymore. You've stepped into the homes of the well-to-do, the scribes, the priests, maybe even a retired official or two. This is Upper Middle Egypt, socially speaking. Not royal, but comfortable, educated. Linen tunics stay white here, servants fetch water, and the headrests, oh, now we're talking polish. You're led imaginarily into one of these homes. The floor is swept clean, perfume bowl simmers faintly in a copper lamp. There's even a fan made of ostrich feathers resting against the wall, its purpose obvious in this late afternoon heat. The homeowner nods politely as you pass. You're not quite sure what you're doing here, but that's the magic of sleepy history. You're allowed anywhere. In the sleeping room, a bed has been raised slightly off the floor, perhaps on a wooden frame, a luxury compared to mats and palm leaves. And at the head of it, a curved, perfectly balanced headrest. It gleams just a little. Polished wood, probably cedar or acacia, rubbed with oil until it could pass for stone. Someone cared for this thing, and someone still does. A servant enters, carefully dusts it with a cloth. Not for cleanliness, you sense, but for ceremony. This isn't just an object, it's a part of the bedtime ritual, like brushing teeth or fluffing pillows, only with more reverence and fewer toothpaste commercials. The headrest here is functional, yes, but it's also symbolic. It says, I sleep well because I live well, and its details whisper wealth without shouting. There's a subtle lotus motif carved into the base. The arch is narrower than most clearly custom. You imagine the owner lying down each night and fitting into it like a puzzle piece. There's even a faint inscription, a prayer to Thoth, god of wisdom and writing. Grant me dreams that teach, whether that's sincere or fashionable, hard to say. Historians still debate how much of this bedtime ritual was heartfelt and how much was status performance like silk pajamas you wear just in case anyone sees. You look around the room, there are scrolls in a corner. A reed pen resting beside a slate, this is likely a scribe's home. Not a scribe for hire, but one employee at a temple or perhaps even the royal court. And this headrest, it may be more than just a neck prop, it could be a thinking tool. There's evidence that some Egyptians believed in lucid dreaming, though they wouldn't have called it that. Temple inscriptions mention dream incubation, sleeping in a sacred space with hopes of divine visions. Priests might spend nights on special beds in sanctuaries, waiting for the gods to whisper solutions or secrets. You wonder, did those priests bring their own headrests? Was this one of them? You reach out and lift it, expecting weight, but it's surprisingly light, hollowed carefully, yet still sturdy. The underside shows tiny burn marks, maybe from incense placed too close, or a long-forgotten candle toppled during a restless night. There's a story etched into the wood literally. Someone carved a small procession along the side, a figure with a scroll, a child holding a wreath, and a dog trotting behind. A family, a dream, a bedtime wish. Here's the quirky bit. Some headrests from this social tier were believed to have soul channels, not in a mystical sense, but actual grooves carved to allow the sleeper's paw that roaming soul bird to leave and return more easily during the night. Like an airport runway for your dreams, whether people believed this literally or just like the idea, historians still scratch their heads. You set the headrest back and sit gently on the bed. The room is quiet, except for the buzz of insects outside. You try to imagine being the owner of this space, educated, respected, your days filled with indecisions, your nights with rest earned through effort. And each time you lie down, there's the headrest, familiar, cool to the touch, shaped to you, like good conversation or an old coat. It's not a showpiece, even though it's beautiful, it's a partner, a private luxury. You smile, just a little, at the thought of someone tucking it under their arm when traveling. Like a kid refusing to sleep without their pillow. It's a quiet human thing. This attachment, timeless. One more detail catches your eye. On the far wall, there's a small shelf, and on it, 3 more headrests. One made of glazed faience, the others wood, both with different carvings. Perhaps each for a different season: cool stone in the summer, warmer wood for chillier nights. Or perhaps different headrests for different moods. Like a wine rack, but for dreams. And now, night is falling outside. You feel it in the way the shadows stretch. In the hush that comes over the courtyard as servants retire and lamps are lit, you lie back just for a moment and let the curve of the imagined headrest cradle your neck. It feels balanced, not soft, but not harsh either. Like a book with the right kind of ending, or a bed that doesn't creak. And as you close your eyes, you think of the scribe just beyond time doing the same. His head resting where yours rests now. Is mine already drifting toward the gods, or grammar, or just that funny moment with the dog and the runaway scroll? Sleep comes easily when your pillow knows your name. The next morning, the first light of day seeps into the room, brushing over the polished surfaces of the headrest and casting delicate shadows. You can almost hear the sound of birds calling from the riverbank, signaling the start of another busy day in ancient Egypt. But for now, all is still. The room you've entered feels like it belongs to a different time, and the world outside is a distant home. You step outside again, not literally, but imagine yourself stepping through a door that creaks. Just a little as it swings open, the courtyard before you is already beginning to stir. Servants have begun their tasks. A woman in the distance carries a basket filled with grains, the soft rustling of them barely audible. A few children play by the garden, chasing each other around a flowering bush that smells of jasmine. You pause for a moment and take in the scene, letting the hum of daily life wash over you. Now, it's time to think about something else: the food. It's hard to ignore, isn't it? Every great culture is built upon its daily rituals, and food plays a starring role in Egyptian society. In fact, it's difficult to picture Egypt without imagining the distinctive smells of bread baking in clay ovens, the steamy aroma of lentil soup, or the tang of pickled fish sold in the market. But let's not get too carried away. You're here to rest, to drift, to ease your mind, not to get hungry. You head into the bustling street that leads to the marketplace, passing under an archway of stone, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. The ground beneath your sandals is a mix of dust and cobblestone, and the heat is already creeping in, making you long for the cool shade of the courtyard you've just left. In the distance, you can see the market square filling up, the vendors setting up their stalls, arranging bundles of woven baskets filled with dates, figs, and loaves of bread the size of your head. The aroma is intoxicating, but there's something about the way the food is presented that draws your attention. There's no flashy signage, no prices written in bold letters. It's all about the quiet barter, the exchange of goods for a handful of copper coins. One stall catches your eye. It's a small one, tucked in a corner, with a large earthen jar at the center, decorated with hieroglyphs and illustrations of waterfall. You lean in a little closer, and the merchant grins at you, clearly proud of his wares. Inside the jar are freshly pickled vegetables, carrots, onions, and, yes, cucumbers. You can almost taste the tanginess, a bite of vinegar and salt. Pickling wasn't just a way to preserve food in ancient Egypt, it was an art form. People didn't just pickle food to store it for later. No, they pickled it for flavor. It was the ancient Egyptian equivalent of a modern-day snack, something tangy to balance out the rich stews and hearty bread. Historians still debate the specifics of ancient Egyptian pickling methods. Some believe they used a simple vinegar solution, while others suggest a fermentation process involving barley or honey. Either way, these pickled vegetables were a staple of daily life, refreshing, sharp, and surprisingly comforting. But, of course, you aren't in the market to haggle today. You just watch, letting the sounds of the marketplace wash over you. The cries of merchants, the occasional burst of laughter, the murmur of negotiations. It's like a slow hum, a rhythmic backdrop to the world of ancient Egypt. Turning away from the stall, you wander a bit farther, passing more sellers, each with their unique offerings. Baskets of dried fish, jugs of oil, and strange fruits you've never seen before. There's even a vendor selling small pots of honey, amber gold and glistening in the sun. You pause for a moment to take in the sight of the honey, imagining the sweet richness of it. Honey, in ancient Egypt, was not just a treat. It was medicine, a sweet balm for wounds, and an essential part of religious offerings. As you continue your stroll, you can't help but be struck by how much the Egyptians valued ritual, even in their daily routines. Whether it was the careful arrangement of headrests, the deliberate way food was prepared and shared, or the care taken with every gesture in daily life, there was an unmistakable sense of respect for the ordinary. This wasn't just survival, it was living with purpose. And as you wander deeper into the heart of the marketplace, you start to notice something else. The way people carry themselves, they walk with a sense of pride, as if every step is part of a larger, unspoken plan. Even the youngest children seem to know their place in the world, their roles already being gently woven into the fabric of Egyptian society. The market is a reflection of the culture, every transaction a moment of personal connection, every choice a subtle expression of status. And speaking of status, it's clear that food, like everything else in Egypt, was not just sustenance, it was a marker. The wealthier classes would indulge in delicacies like roasted fowl, stews of meat and vegetables, and piles of bread that seemed endless. Meanwhile, the working class would fill their stomachs with bread and beer, simple, reliable, and always within reach. As you wander through the marketplace, you find yourself feeling strangely connected to the people here, even though you're separated by millennia. Their world might be distant, but it feels so immediate. Every act of daily life is alive with meaning. Even in something as mundane as a meal, there's a connection, a ritual, and a respect for the ordinary. Finally, you stop and close your eyes for a moment. You take in a deep breath, the scent of freshly baked bread, the tang of pickled vegetables, and the faint hint of incense wafting in the air. For just a moment, it's as though you've stepped back in time, part of this ancient rhythm. In this world, everything has its place, each headrest, each jar of pickled vegetables, each merchant peddling their goods. And as you step away from the marketplace, you carry with you a quiet understanding of how, in the end, it's all about balance between comfort and need, ritual and necessity, luxury and simplicity. You take a deep breath as you feel the warmth of the morning sun on your face, knowing that the world around you, just like the headrests and the food, is waiting patiently to be noticed, to be remembered, and to be respected. As the sun rises higher in the sky, the sound of bustling life around you grows louder. You feel the pulse of the city through the street's footsteps, conversation, the occasional clink of metal, the rattle of carts moving through the marketplace. All of it vibrates in the background like a familiar lullaby. But now, you wander away from the market, down a quieter path. A little cooler here, the air carrying the faintest scent of cedarwood from a nearby temple. It's peaceful, almost too peaceful, as if this part of the city is reserved for the thoughts of great minds. The structure that comes into view is imposing, a stone structure, grand and majestic, with towering columns and intricate carvings etched into the walls. This is a temple, a place of reverence, and a place where, in a sense, the headrests you've encountered might be even more symbolic than in the homes of scribes and merchants. You step inside, imagining the cool, dim light inside the temple. There's a sense of hushed reverence, as if the very air has been steeped in history. The walls here tell their own stories of gods, of kings, of heroes long forgotten by time. And as you drift deeper into the sanctuary, you can almost hear the whisper of the priests, their voices soft but filled with authority, echoing off the stone. The deeper you go into the temple, the more it feels like you're entering the mind of Egypt itself, ancient, profound, layered with meaning. This is not just a space for prayer. It is a space for thought, for reflection, for ritual. Now, imagine for a moment that you're not here as a visitor, but as a priest or priestess yourself, standing before one of the grand altars, adorned with offerings. You're preparing to commune with the gods, to seek their guidance. The moment is calm, almost sacred, and you feel the weight of the responsibility. There's something about the way people in Egypt connected with their gods that feels intimate. They didn't just pray, they built relationships with their deities. They fed them, bathed them in incense, dressed them in fine linens. Temples were not simply places of worship, they were centers of communication. People brought their most personal desires and needs to these sacred spaces, and in return, they hoped for blessings, guidance, and, often, protection. In this temple, there's a subtle rhythm to the daily rituals. The priests, wearing their simple linen garments, walk silently, their feet barely making a sound on the stone floors. They enter the inner sanctum where only the highest priests are allowed. There, within the dim light, they prepare offerings: bread, wine, oil, and yes, incense, burning in small braziers, sending soft curls of smoke into the air. It's a dance of reverence and silence, and in the corner of the room, there it is again, a headrest. Like the ones you've seen in the scribe's home, but this one is different. It's larger, carved with symbols of the god Anubis, the god of mummification, his sleek, jackal-headed figure carved with such care. The headrest, standing proud and dignified, symbolizes not only comfort for the physical body but also spiritual alignment. Priests believed that sleep was a sacred state, a moment when the soul was free to wander, to communicate with the divine. The headrest wasn't merely a tool for comfort, it was an instrument of that journey. The priests would sleep in the temple, beneath the watchful eyes of their gods, as they sought clarity in their dreams. It's said that some of the temples in Egypt contained sacred sleeping chambers, where those who sought wisdom would sleep in the presence of the gods. And the headrests there, much like in the homes of the wealthy, were seen as important elements in that ritual. You wonder, what dreams did the priests have? What answers did they receive from their divine visitors in the quiet of the night? Perhaps they slept deeply, their heads cradled by these finely crafted headrests, their souls at rest and ready to receive the messages from the gods. The headrest here isn't merely for the physical body. It's a tool for mental and spiritual alignment. It helps the priest rest, but it also helps him or her prepare for the sacred journey of sleep, where anything is possible. Perhaps a divine message, or perhaps an answer to an important question, would come as they lay their head upon it. The temple feels heavy with mystery, as though the very stones hold the answers to countless unspoken questions. You feel like you're on the brink of understanding something ancient, something profound. But instead of pushing too hard to unravel the mystery, you choose to let it linger. The quiet atmosphere of the temple settles over you. The weight of history and the solemnity of the place create an almost tangible sense of connection. You can almost feel the presence of those who once walked here, the priests and priestesses, the lay people who came to offer their prayers, and those who simply sought solace in the quiet of the night. The ritual of sleep, the headrests, the prayers, they were all part of a larger story, one that carried the wisdom of thousands of years. Even now, as you stand in this imagined temple, you can sense the enduring power of that wisdom. And with that sense of peace, you gently step away from the temple. You leave the dark, cool stone behind, stepping back into the warmth of the daylight. The sounds of the city resume in the distance, but for a moment, you're at rest. You're no longer bound by time, by the need to hurry, to achieve. The ancient rhythm of Egypt has slowed, and in that stillness, you allow yourself to drift. The city outside the temple seems to breathe with its own energy. The bustle of daily life resumes as you step back onto the street, but something has changed within you. The quiet of the temple lingers like a soft, constant hum in the background of your mind. It's not unlike the feeling you get when you're on the edge of sleep, half aware, yet deeply at peace. Now, the streets seem to move slower, more fluid. The sun casts long shadows across the stone pathways, and a soft breeze moves through the palm trees lining the road. You pause for a moment, letting the world continue around you while you stand still, just for a little while longer. The people passing by carrying baskets, chatting in low voices, their children laughing in the distance, they don't seem to notice you. Their lives are so immersed in their own rhythms, their own rituals. There's something comforting about that. The world keeps turning, but for now, you can allow yourself this pause. The air, it is filled with the sound of life, but it's not overwhelming, it's just there. You watch as a group of workers move toward the riverbank, perhaps to fetch water or prepare for another day's task. The river Nile flows calmly in the distance, reflecting the golden light of the sun as it winds its way toward the delta. It's always there, constant and steady, an essential lifeline for the entire civilization. The people around you are working, but there's no rush, no frantic hurry. Instead, the rhythm of their lives seems to flow in time with the river, slow, measured, deliberate. They carry their loads with an ease that suggests familiarity, a comfort in their daily tasks that you can almost feel. It's as though their movements, like the headrests and the food, have a purpose beyond the immediate. They are all part of a larger flow, a cycle that repeats, but never feels mundane. And speaking of cycles, it's hard to ignore how many of these daily activities are tied to the seasons. The Nile, the heart of Egypt, rises and falls with a consistency that is almost mythical. It's said that the flooding of the river was a divine event, tied to the god's will, but it was also an essential part of daily life. The flooding enriched the soil, bringing fresh nutrients and allowing the Egyptians to grow the crops that would feed their people. Without the river, there would be no crops. Without the crops, there would be no sustenance, no economy. The Egyptians knew this intimately. They measured the rise of the river, the shifts in the weather, the timing of planting and harvesting, all with a precision that was built into their bones. Even the calendar, with its 12 months and 365 days, was designed around the rhythms of the Nile. It wasn't just a way to mark time, it was a way to sync their lives to the heartbeat of the land. You think back to the headrests once more, a small, seemingly insignificant object, yet it's so much more than that. It's part of a pattern, a way of understanding the world around them. The Egyptians didn't just sleep, they prepared for it. Just as they prepared for the floods of the Nile, the headrest was a tool for aligning the body with the natural world, creating a sense of harmony, balance, and perhaps even divine favor. As you walk along the road, you notice more of these small details, the way the stone buildings catch the sun at just the right angle, how the wind stirs the dust into tiny spirals, the way the river glints, like silver, in the distance. The Egyptians were masters of observation, tuning their lives to the smallest of details. Their approach to the world was one of reverence, even in the mundane. They didn't see sleep, food, or work as separate parts of life. They saw them all as interconnected, each one a vital part of the whole. They understood, perhaps without even realizing it, that there is beauty in the ordinary, in the seemingly insignificant. A headrest wasn't just a piece of furniture, it was a symbol of comfort, of rest, of divine mounds. and it was a reminder that life, like the Nile, flows in cycles, sometimes still, sometimes moving fast, but always in motion. Your footsteps slow as you come upon a quiet corner of the city, away from the busy streets. Here, the houses are more modest, the walls of mud brick and a simple home, with a thatched roof and an open doorway, beckons you to pause and take a look inside. The air here feels cooler, the shadows deeper. This is where you might find the headrests in their most humble form, the kind that would rest against a peasant's humble clay bed, or perhaps next to the small fire where the family gathers each evening. The simplicity of these homes makes you realize just how universal the need for rest is. Whether you are a merchant in the market or a priest in the temple, the desire for a good night's sleep, the need to lay your head down and rest, is something that unites all people, regardless of status, and it's this quiet commonality that has endured through the ages. In this moment, as you stand in the shadow of this humble home, you can almost feel the weight of time, how everything in Egypt, from the most elaborate temple to the simplest home, has been built with an understanding of this essential human need. Rest is as sacred as the harvest, as important as the rituals, as vital as the river itself. You smile softly to yourself, knowing that in the end, it's the quiet rhythms of daily life, the small moments, the routines, the familiar rituals that make up the great tapestry of Egypt. And with that thought, you continue on your way, ready to discover what the next part of this ancient city has to offer. The sun is beginning to dip lower in the sky now, casting a soft orange glow over the landscape. The temperature drops slightly, the air cool and fresh, as you make your way along the winding streets. There's a new kind of quiet settling over the city, a transition from the busy energy of the day to the more peaceful hum of evening. The hustle of merchants has faded, replaced by the soothing sounds of crickets and distant conversations in homes. You follow the road as it narrows, and ahead, you spot a small gathering of people. At first, you think it might be a family getting together after a day's work, but as you approach, you realize it's something else entirely. It's a gathering of artisans, mostly young men and women, gathered under the dim light of an oil lamp, seated in a circle, working with their hands. This is a group of craftsmen and artisans, working on their trades, some fashioning jewelry, others weaving intricate patterns into fabric, and still others carving small pieces of wood or stone. These people are creating beauty, and yet their work is also deeply practical. It's a delicate balance that you can feel in the air, the quiet focus of these individuals, each lost in the rhythm of their own craftsmanship. You step closer, noticing a few of the women, seated with grace, bending over the delicate materials in their hands. Their fingers move swiftly, yet carefully, as they weave intricate patterns into pieces of cloth, perhaps preparing the linen used to make bedclothes, or even something as simple as a headrest cover. Their work, while simple in nature, is an integral part of daily life in Egypt. This is not just art, it's practicality woven into beauty. The headrests, you recall, often came with fine linen or cotton coverings. These coverings were not merely for comfort or decoration, they had symbolic meaning. Much like the headrests themselves, the materials used to create the coverings reflected the status of the individual. The wealthier classes may have had elaborate, embroidered covers, while the more modest might settle for simple, unadorned linen. In this small gathering, you're reminded of the intimacy of Egyptian life. The work they do here is not for grand palaces or temples. It's for their homes, places where they will rest, sleep, and live their daily lives. And perhaps, just as importantly, it's work done for others, within their community. These artisans know that the products of their hands will be used by others' families who rely on the bedclothes and the headrests to rest after their day's work. You're struck by the quiet camaraderie in the group. There's an understanding here, an appreciation for the quiet art of making something useful, something comfortable. You see them pause for a moment to exchange a few words, smiles exchange here and there, but mostly, they're working in silence, each one focused on their task. It's a reminder of how Egypt was built not just by kings and priests, but by people like these, those who worked with their hands to create the things that made everyday life possible. The modest artisan is just as essential to the Egyptian world as the pharaoh, in his own way. It's this quiet, ongoing work, the weaving of cloth, the carving of wood, the shaping of stone, that supports the larger structure of Egypt. These artisans may not have the grandeur of a royal scribe or a high priest, but they to play a role in creating the rhythm of life. Without the materials they produce, the bedclothes, the tools, and even the headrests, the society would not function as smoothly. In some ways, they are the unsung heroes of daily Egyptian life. It's easy to imagine how these craftsmen would return home at night to their own small dwellings, where the headrest waits for them at the end of a long day. These headrests, often seen as symbols of comfort and status, are in fact a daily necessity for everyone. They allow people to rest their bodies, rest their minds, and prepare for the work ahead. Perhaps that's the beauty of the headrest. In the context of the everyday life of ancient Egypt, it's a symbol of balance. The balance between work and rest, between practicality and beauty, between the sacred and the mundane. These objects were not mere luxuries, they were a quiet part of the ongoing rhythm of life. Just as the artisan's work helps maintain the fabric of society, so too does the headrest serve as a quiet reminder of that same balance. Now, as you stand quietly in the circle of artisans, listening to the soft hum of their work, you realize just how deeply interwoven the everyday objects of Egypt are with its larger cultural rhythms. These are not mere items, they are parts of a grander narrative, a story that's been passed down through generations, where even something as seemingly simple as a headrest holds the weight of tradition, of culture, and of practicality. In this moment, you feel a kind of calm settle over you, a gentle understanding that the seemingly small things are just as important as the grand ones. The headrests, the simple linens, the crafted tools, they are all threads in the intricate tapestry of Egyptian life. And though you may never know the exact names or faces of these artisans, their legacy lives on in the objects they created, used by countless generations, including the pharaohs themselves. With that thought, you allow your gaze to linger on the work being done here. Then, with a soft sigh, you step away from the gathering, feeling the gentle pull of the evening and a sense that your journey through Egypt is far from over. As the evening deepens, you find yourself wandering further away from the quiet artisan gathering, drawn by the distant, hauntingly beautiful sound of a flute playing somewhere in the cool night air. It's a sound so delicate, so soft, that it seems almost to fade into the night itself. You follow the sound, letting the melody guide you down narrow, winding streets. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the palm trees that line the roads, but it doesn't disturb the soft, lilting music that calls you forward. As you round a corner, you spot the source of the sound, a small group of musicians, their instruments catching the fading light from the oil lamps. They sit beneath a canopy of woven reeds, their faces half lit by the flickering light. There's a warmth to the scene, as though the music itself is an invitation to pause and take in the moment. You can hear the low hum of a stringed instrument, perhaps a lyre, blending beautifully with the sweet notes of the flute. One of the musicians, a man with a long beard, has his eyes closed, completely immersed in the rhythm of the song. It's clear that this is more than just a performance, this is an expression of life, of Egypt itself. You stop, almost without thinking, and find a place to sit nearby, unnoticed in the shadows. The music wraps around you, its softness filling the spaces between the sounds of the night, the distant murmur of voices, the occasional barking of dogs, the rustling of the palm fronds. There's a dreamlike quality to the music. It flows, not fast, but with a deep sense of purpose. You can't help but be pulled into it. As you sit there, the sounds of the musicians remind you that ancient Egypt, like so many cultures, wasn't just about work or grand monuments. It was also about these small moments of human expression, of art and music that wove through everyday life. Music, especially, had a sacred place in Egyptian culture. It was deeply intertwined with their spiritual practices, their rituals, and even their most mundane moments. Music accompanied the work in the fields, the festivals, and the quiet moments of reflection. The flute, in particular, has a long history in Egypt. The instrument's smooth, breathy sound would have been known to every Egyptian. It was played in temples, at court, and in the homes of common people. The flute was often used to accompany religious ceremonies, but it was also found at festive gatherings. Its melodies were believed to be a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms, a way to communicate with the gods, to elevate the soul, or simply to enjoy the pleasures of life. For the people of Egypt, music was a way to celebrate the rhythm of existence. The songs and the instruments were like the sound of the Nile itself, constantly moving, shaping, and refreshing the land. The music you hear now, with its soft, steady flow, feels like a continuation of that rhythm. You can imagine the same sounds drifting across the fields as farmers work, or filling the halls of grand temples during ceremonies. It's a reminder that the rituals of daily life, no matter how grand or simple, all share a certain sacredness. As you listen, you begin to notice how the music itself seems to match the quiet pace of the evening. It's neither too fast nor too slow, but somewhere in between, a perfect balance. It's the kind of music you could lose yourself in, the kind of music that calms the mind and invites you to reflect. It's like the headrests you've seen in the temples and homes, simple, but essential for creating a sense of rest, of peace. Just as the headrest cradles a head and allows the body to relax, this music cradles the soul, easing it into a state of tranquility. You begin to feel that same sense of calm settle over you, as though the music is a kind of invitation to release the tension from your own body. The hum of the night, the gentle notes of the flute, the subtle thrum of the stringed instrument, everything feels perfectly aligned, as though the entire world is gently lulling you toward a peaceful sleep. And yet, as you listen, you remember that this music, this moment, has been happening for centuries. The same instruments, the same rhythms, perhaps even the same songs, have been played by generations of Egyptians. The flute may have passed from hand to hand, the melodies altered slightly by each musician, but the essence of the music remains unchanged. It's a part of the cultural fabric of Egypt, a thread that weaves through time, connecting the past and present. The musicians begin to play a more upbeat tune now, a lively melody that seems to pick up the pace, yet still retains that soothing, rhythmic quality. It's as if they're inviting you to wake from the quiet, to join in the energy of life again. But just as quickly, the melody softens again, winding down, pulling you back into the lull of the evening. It's an invitation to experience the ebb and flow of life in its entirety, both the moments of quiet reflection and the bursts of energy that accompany the living of each day. You feel yourself becoming more and more relaxed, your body swaying slightly with the rhythm of the music. The light in the musician's area flickers softly, casting long shadows across the dirt path. The sounds of the night become one with the music. As the final notes of the song fade into the distance, the air feels still, as though the city itself is taking a collective breath. The musicians stop playing, but their music lingers in your mind like a soft echo. You sit for a moment longer, taking in the peace of the night. The music may have stopped, but its presence remains, filling the space around you. You stand and slowly begin to make your way back, the sounds of the flute still dancing faintly in your ears, a memory of the deep, quiet connection that exists between music, rest, and the ongoing rhythm of life. The night sky has fully darkened by the time you resume your journey, the last traces of twilight swallowed by the deep blue of the Egyptian night. The streets are quieter now, the distant sounds of the bustling city faded, leaving only the soft rustle of the wind through the palm trees. It's a different kind of calm, the kind that comes only when the sun has dipped entirely below the horizon, and the world seems to pause, suspended in time. The oil lamps lining the streets flicker softly, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls as you continue walking, your footsteps muffled against the dust. As you move along, you pass by a small marketplace, now deserted after the day's commerce. The stalls, once brimming with food, jewelry, and pottery, stand empty, their wares packed away for the night. It's a curious sight, this market, which just hours ago was alive with haggling and bargaining, now stands still and silent, as if it, too, is taking a moment to rest. There's a certain stillness to the place that feels oddly sacred, a reminder that even the busiest of places has its moments of quiet. You pause for a moment, taking in the empty stalls. It's hard to imagine the flurry of activity that would have filled the air just a few hours ago. Perhaps you can almost hear the faint echoes of the merchants calling out to potential customers, or the soft murmur of trades being made. But now, all that remains is the quiet space between these memories, and then, from the corner of your eye, something catches your attention. It's a small, simple stall tucked in the corner of the marketplace, its humble display lit by a single flickering lamp. At first glance, it seems like nothing special, just a few carefully stacked pots and vases, each one crafted from the earthy clay that's so common in this region. But as you step closer, you notice something that sets this stall apart. These aren't just any clay pots, they're intricately designed, with patterns that seem to shift and swirl when you look at them long enough, These are the pottery pieces of an ancient Egyptian craft that has been passed down through generations. Pottery used for something as seemingly simple, yet essential, as storage. Storage jars, urns, and containers, each one designed to hold everything from water to grain to oil. At first glance, they may appear functional, perhaps even mundane, but in their delicate patterns and careful craftsmanship lies a quiet story of daily life. You take a moment to look more closely at one of the jars. Its surface is smooth, almost glossy, with intricate carving spiraling around the rim. The pattern's delicate geometric shapes speak to a tradition of artistry that spans centuries. Some of these jars may have been used to store food for a family or hold precious oils used in religious rituals. Others, like the large urns, may have held the remains of the deceased, placed in tombs to accompany the dead into the afterlife. The pottery of ancient Egypt was more than just utilitarian. It was an essential part of the culture's belief system. These items were often decorated with symbols that held spiritual significance, such as the ankh, representing life, or the scarab beetle, symbolizing rebirth and protection. The pots were more than just storage. They were vessels of meaning, of ritual, and of life itself. You can't help but wonder how many generations of Egyptians have stood before these very stalls, marveling at the same patterns, the same craft, as they selected the jars that would hold their food or their water, or perhaps the remains of their loved ones. These pots were the silent witnesses to daily life, to the routines and rituals that define ancient Egyptian existence. As you continue to gaze at the jars, you remember that pottery has played a role in nearly every aspect of Egyptian life. The earliest forms of Egyptian pottery date back thousands of years, long before the pyramids were built. They were used in everything from cooking to burial practices, and the art of pottery making became a highly valued skill. Pottery workshops were often established in large towns, where skilled artisans would create both functional items and more decorative pieces for the elite. The pieces that remain today, those that have survived through centuries of change and wear, serve as a testament to the enduring nature of this craft. The fact that you're standing here, in the same spot where an ancient artisan might have worked, is a strange and humbling thought. The pots and jars before you, though simple, are links to the past. They are small pieces of history, holding not just water or grain, but memories and stories. You continue your walk, the gentle hum of the night filling your ears as you leave the marketplace behind. The silence that follows you now feels almost like a companion, settling around you like a soft blanket. The evening has taken on a quiet, reflective quality, and there's a sense that you're moving through a world that's both ancient and timeless, one that continues to whisper its secrets to those willing to listen. The soft light from the remaining lamps catches the edges of the market stalls as you walk on, the gentle breeze tugging at your clothes. You're reminded of the quiet rhythms of life that have persisted in Egypt for centuries. Though the world around you may have changed in countless ways, there's a continuity to it all, the unspoken connection between the past and the present, carried forward in the hands of artisans, musicians, and storytellers alike. As you make your way toward the edge of the market, a final thought settles in your mind. These pots, these small, humble items, represent something essential about ancient Egypt. They are a reminder that even in the most seemingly ordinary aspects of life, there's a deeper layer of meaning, a connection to the world around us, and to those who have come before. With this thought in mind, you let the quiet of the night wash over you once more, preparing for the rest of your journey. As you continue walking, the air feels cooler, the night deepening around you. The city is quieter now, but there's still a palpable sense of life, of energy, that seems to hum just beneath the surface of the calm. You've passed by the marketplace, now fading into the background of your journey, and the sound of the flute you once heard lingers in your memory like a faint echo. The streets, lit by the soft glow of lanterns, are now mostly empty, save for a few night walkers making their way home. You can almost feel the rhythm of the city in these streets, as though each step you take is another beat in a song that plays on quietly, unbroken. Eventually, you reach the outer edge of the city, where the dense buildings give way to open spaces. The wind has picked up again, rustling through the trees and stirring the dust that gathers along the dirt roads. You pause for a moment, taking a deep breath, feeling the night air on your skin, refreshing and cool. The sky above is clear, dotted with stars, and you can see the faint outline of the Nile in the distance, winding its way across the land like a living, breathing artery. It's a sight you've seen before, of course, but something about it tonight feels different, more vast, more ancient. You walk toward the riverbank, drawn by the quiet beauty of the water. There's a soft lapping sound as the river's edge meets the shore, and you can smell the faint, earthy scent of the water, rich with the life it carries. The Nile, for all its power and grandeur, seems peaceful in this moment, as if it, too, is taking a moment to rest. The gentle flow of the water reminds you of the way time moves in Egypt, unhurried, yet always moving forward. The sound of the river is soothing, and you find yourself drawn closer to the water's edge. As you stand there, looking out across the wide expanse of the Nile, it's easy to imagine what life must have been like for the ancient Egyptians who lived along its banks. The river was more than just a source of water, it was the lifeblood of the civilization, providing not only sustenance, but also a means of travel, trade, and communication. The people of Egypt relied on the Nile for almost everything, from growing their crops to navigating the vast, sprawling land. But the river was also a place of mystery, of mythology, and of belief. For the Egyptians, the Nile wasn't just a river, it was a divine entity, a gift from the gods themselves. The annual flooding of the river was a central event in Egyptian life, as it brought with it the rich, fertile silt that would nourish the crops for the coming year. This cycle, this rhythm, was seen as a manifestation of the gods' favor, a symbol of renewal and life. You find yourself standing there, contemplating the river's quiet power. It's easy to forget just how important the Nile was to the ancient Egyptians, how deeply intertwined it was with their daily lives. From the pharaohs who ruled the land to the farmers who tended the crops, the Nile was a constant presence, shaping their world in ways both seen and unseen. Even now, standing at its edge, you can feel the weight of that history pressing gently against you, as though the river itself holds the stories of millennia. As you take in the view, a soft breeze brushes past you, stirring the water slightly. The stars above seem to shimmer more brightly, as if reflecting the life-giving light of the river below. The air feels thick with history, rich with the knowledge that this river has witnessed the rise and fall of dynasties, the construction of great monuments, and the quiet moments of daily life. You imagine the ancient Egyptians who once stood on this very same bank, perhaps pondering the same thoughts, perhaps simply pausing to take in the beauty of the river as you are now. You sit down by the water, letting the quiet of the night settle around you. The only sound now is the gentle flow of the Nile, and the soft rustling of the palm fronds as the wind moves through them. The night is cool, the air fresh, and you find yourself lost in the rhythm of the world around you, as if everything is perfectly in place. It's a peaceful moment, and it feels as though the weight of time has slowed just for you, allowing you to experience this small, intimate piece of history. The Egyptians understood the importance of balance, the balance between work and rest, between the bustling energy of daily life and the quiet moments of reflection that help to renew the spirit. The river, in all its quiet power, represents that balance. It flows gently, but constantly, like time itself, never rushing, never faltering. For the ancient Egyptians, the Nile was a symbol of life, death, and rebirth. It was the axis around which their world turned, and its influence can still be felt today. As you sit by the water, the world around you seems to slow, and you begin to understand, in a quiet, subtle way, the profound connection the Egyptians had with this land, this river, and this night. Time passes slowly in this place, and the gentle rhythm of the Nile seems to stretch it out even further. It's a comforting feeling, the way everything here, from the stars above to the water below, seems to move in harmony. There's no rush, no urgency, just the steady pulse of life, of time, of the world turning slowly, gently. And as the night deepens around you, you feel yourself gently surrendering to that rhythm, letting the peace of the river, the cool air, and the quiet night carry you into a state of calm. The night is now deep, the only sounds the occasional ripple of the river and the soft rustling of palm leaves above you. The cool breeze that has been following you all evening now feels like a gentle touch on your skin, urging you to slow down, to embrace the quiet stillness that surrounds you. Everything is bathed in the soft glow of the moon, the landscape transformed into a world of shadows and silver, like a memory slowly fading into the past. As you walk, you reflect once more on the ancient Egyptian connection to this very river, to this land. It seems almost impossible, yet deeply comforting. To think that the people who lived here thousands of years ago could have experienced the same quiet, the same stillness, the same peace that you feel now. The ancient Egyptians, with all their grandeur and magnificence, were also deeply attuned to the rhythms of nature, to the flow of the river, to the passage of time. They knew, as you now do, that there is a certain peace to be found in simply being present, in allowing the world around you to unfold at its own pace. You take a slow breath, the air crisp and full of life, and for a moment, you allow yourself to think of the stars above, the same stars that guided the Egyptians and have watched over countless generations. The constellations in the sky tonight are not new, they have existed since time immemorial, their patterns unchanged, steady, unwavering. The Egyptians used these stars for navigation, for aligning their temples and pyramids, and for marking the passing of seasons. The sky above them was just as vast and mysterious as it is to you now, and yet, in their own way, they understood it. They knew how to read the heavens, how to find their way by the stars. And here you are, under those same stars, drifting between the past and the present, between the distant echoes of the pharaohs and the soft murmur of the river at your back. Time, it seems, has no urgency here. It moves slowly, gently, like the current of the Nile itself, carrying everything along in its quiet flow. And as you walk, you realize that perhaps this is the most important lesson the Egyptians have left us, with the understanding that life is a cycle, a rhythm, a series of moments that flow together, like the river that sustains all life. You reach a small clearing, the trees parting to reveal the river once more, its surface calm and undisturbed. The gentle ripples reflect the stars above, creating a shimmering, mirror-like effect, as if the sky itself is lying upon the earth. You stop for a moment, feeling the stillness of the world around you. There is no need to rush, no need to hurry. The past and present coexist in this moment, and everything seems to have slowed to match the pace of your thoughts. The peace that settles over you now is profound, almost sacred. You think back to the stories you've heard about the ancient Egyptians, their gods and goddesses, their belief in the afterlife, their reverence for nature. But at this moment, it is not those grand tales that echo the loudest in your mind. It is the quiet, the simplicity of their daily lives, their connection to the river, to the earth, to the stars that seems to speak the most clearly to you. Perhaps, in the end, it wasn't the grand pyramids or the towering statues that defined their civilization. Maybe it was their ability to find peace in the smallest of things, their gardens, their rituals, their quiet moments by the river, the same quiet moments you now share with them, under the same stars, by the same river, in the same land. As you stand at the water's edge, the stillness feels like a soft embrace. There is no rush here, no pressure to move faster, to keep up with the world. It is as if the river itself has asked you to stop and simply be, to listen to its quiet rhythm, to feel the gentle pull of its current, to understand that in this moment, you are part of something much larger than yourself. The river that carried the Egyptians, that sustained them, now carries you too, with its gentle flow. You take one last look at the water, its surface reflecting the soft light of the moon. The stars above seem to nod in silent approval, as if they have always been here, waiting for this moment. And with that, you turn away from the river, walking slowly back along the path you came, the quiet stillness of the night wrapping itself around you like a blanket. There is nothing more to do now, nothing more to think. The journey has been long, but peaceful, and as you continue your walk through the moonlit landscape, you feel your mind quieting, your body relaxing. The night holds you gently, and the stars above, like ancient friends, offer their silent companionship. There is peace here, peace in the river, in the land, in the stars, and with it comes a deep, soothing sense of calm. Now, as you approach your resting place for the night, the world around you seems to settle into a rhythm that matches your own. The river hums softly behind you, the wind whispers through the trees, and the moonlight bathes everything in a gentle glow. The quiet of the night, the peace of the land, and the timelessness of the river are all around you, and as you lie down, your body and mind slowly ease into sleep. You realize that the night has worked its magic, gently lulling you into a state of tranquility, just as the ancient Egyptians were lulled by the rhythms of the Nile. And in this quiet, peaceful moment, you allow yourself to drift off, knowing that the world around you, like the river, will continue its slow, steady flow, carrying you with it. As you make your way back, The quiet of the night seems to have wrapped itself around you. The soft rustling of the palm trees and the distant murmur of the river continue to provide a soothing soundtrack, and the weight of the night seems to gently anchor you to this timeless place. The city behind you, once bustling with energy, now feels far away, like a distant memory fading into the quiet night. The path ahead is dimly lit by the soft glow of lanterns, their light flickering like small stars scattered along the way. The shadows cast by the trees seem to stretch out like long, dark fingers, and the world feels as if it has slowed down, as though time itself is taking a moment to breathe. The air is cool, with a slight dampness that feels refreshing against your skin, and the scent of the river, earthy and deep, lingers in the air, filling your senses with a calming peace. As you walk, you think about the vast civilization that once thrived in this land. The ancient Egyptians built their cities, temples, and monuments with such precision and care that even now, thousands of years later, their legacy endures. The pyramids rise from the desert, their stone faces weathered by time but still towering with majesty. The temples stand like sentinels, their carvings send hieroglyphs telling stories of gods and kings, of triumphs and tribulations, of life and death. But beyond the monumental achievements of the Egyptians, it's the smaller, quieter moments that seem to resonate the most tonight. The simple rituals of daily life, the connection to nature, the reverence for the cycles of life, they were all part of the foundation of this ancient civilization. And as you walk through this night, with the soft whispers of the Nile at your back, you feel a deep sense of peace, as though you stepped out of time itself and into a place where history and the present are one. The Egyptians, in their wisdom, understood the importance of balance. They knew that life was a constant ebb and flow, a cycle of birth, growth, decay, and renewal. This understanding was reflected in everything they did, whether it was the careful alignment of their buildings with the stars, the rhythms of their agricultural cycles tied to the flooding of the Nile, or the rituals they performed to honor the gods and the earth. Everything had its place, and everything moved in harmony with the world around it. As you continue walking, you realize that this sense of balance is something that still exists in the world today, even if we don't always notice it. The same rhythms of nature that guided the Egyptians still pulse through the world around you: the changing of the seasons, the rising and setting of the sun, the ebb and flow of the tide. These natural forces, timeless and constant, are the same forces that shaped the lives of the ancient Egyptians, and they continue to shape ours, even now. It's a humbling thought, one that settles deep within you as you walk through the quiet streets. The world may have changed in countless ways since the time of the pharaohs, but in the most fundamental ways, it remains the same. The river still flows, the stars still shine, and the earth continues to turn with the same unbroken rhythm has followed for millennia. As you walk along the path, you pass by a small garden, its plants swaying gently in the night breeze. The soft scent of blooming flowers fills the air, and you can't help but pause for a moment, taking in the beauty of this peaceful scene. The Egyptians, too, had a deep love for nature and the simple pleasures it offered. Their gardens were not just places of beauty, but also of spiritual significance. Plants like lotus flowers, papyrus, and various herbs were symbolic of life, rebirth, and healing, and the gardens were often seen as miniature representations of the larger cosmos. You wonder, as you look at the garden in front of you, if the ancient Egyptians felt the same sense of peace and connection to the earth that you do in this moment. It's easy to imagine them strolling through their own gardens, pausing to admire the beauty of the flowers, or perhaps tending to the plants with care, as though each one held a secret to the universe. The garden, like the river, would have been a place of quiet reflection, a space where the rhythms of nature could be felt most deeply. The thought brings a sense of calm over you, and for a moment, you simply stand there, letting the night embrace you. The gentle sounds of the breeze, the distant call of an owl, the rustling of the leaves, everything feels so simple, so right, as if the world has come full circle. The ancient Egyptians knew that it was in these quiet moments of connection with nature that true peace could be found. And tonight, as you stand in the garden, you begin to understand why. Eventually, you resume your walk, your pace slow and steady. The city is now far behind you, and the only sounds are the natural ones: the wine, the rustling trees, the distant sound of water. There is something deeply calming about this rhythm, to sense that the world is moving at its own pace, unhurried and untroubled. It's as though time has stretched itself out, allowing you to move through it at your own speed. to savor each moment without the pressure of urgency. The further you walk, the more the quiet of the night seems to settle into your bones. You feel the weight of history of everything that has come before, and yet you also feel the lightness of the present, the gentle now. The rhythm of life, of the river, of the stars, is all around you, and it wraps you in a comforting embrace, reminding you that this moment, this quiet pause, is just as important as the grand events that have shaped the world. And so, as you continue your walk under the stars, you feel a deep sense of connection to the river, to the land, to the ancient people who once lived here, and to the world that continues to turn. The night is still, and the world around you seems to be holding its breath, waiting for the next moment to unfold. But for now, you can simply be here, in this moment, resting in the peaceful flow of time. The night is now deep. The only sounds the occasional ripple of the river and the soft rustling of palm leaves above you. The cool breeze that has been following you all evening now feels like a gentle touch on your skin, urging you to slow down, to embrace the quiet stillness that surrounds you. Everything is bathed in the soft glow of the moon, the landscape transformed into a world of shadows and silver, like a memory slowly fading into the past. As you walk, you reflect once more on the ancient Egyptian connection to this very river, to this land. It seems almost impossible, yet deeply comforting, to think that the people who lived here thousands of years ago could have experienced the same quiet, the same stillness, the same peace that you feel now. The ancient Egyptians, with all their grandeur and magnificence, were also deeply attuned to the rhythms of nature, to the flow of the river, to the passage of time. They knew, as you now do, that there is a certain peace to be found in simply being present, in allowing the world around you to unfold at its own pace. You take a slow breath, the air crisp and full of life, and for a moment, you allow yourself to think of the stars above, the same stars that guided the Egyptians and have watched over countless generations. The constellations in the sky tonight are not new, they have existed since time immemorial, their patterns unchanged, steady, unwavering. The Egyptians used these stars for navigation, for aligning their temples and pyramids, and for marking the passing of seasons. The sky above them was just as vast and mysterious as it is to you now, and yet, in their own way, they understood it. They knew how to read the heavens, how to find their way by the stars. And here you are, under those same stars, drifting between the past and the present, between the distant echoes of the pharaohs and the soft murmur of the river at your back. Time, it seems, has no urgency here. It moves slowly, gently, like the current of the Nile itself, carrying everything along in its quiet flow. And as you walk, you realize that perhaps this is the most important lesson the Egyptians have left us, with the understanding that life is a cycle, a rhythm, a series of moments that flow together, like the river that sustains all life. You reach a small clearing, the trees parting to reveal the river once more, its surface calm and undisturbed. The gentle ripples reflect the stars above, creating a shimmering, mirror-like effect, as if the sky itself is lying upon the earth. You stop for a moment, feeling the stillness of the world around you. There is no need to rush, no need to hurry. The past and present coexist in this moment, and everything seems to have slowed to match the pace of your thoughts. The peace that settles over you now is profound, almost sacred. You think back to the stories you've heard about the ancient Egyptians, their gods and goddesses, their belief in the afterlife, their reverence for nature. But at this moment, it is not those grand tales that echo the loudest in your mind. It is the quiet, the simplicity of their daily lives, their connection to the river, to the earth, to the stars that seems to speak the most clearly to you. Perhaps, in the end, it wasn't the grand pyramids or the towering statues that defined their civilization. Maybe it was their ability to find peace in the smallest of things, their gardens, their rituals, their quiet moments by the river, the same quiet moments you now share with them, under the same stars, by the same river, in the same land. As you stand at the water's edge, the stillness feels like a soft embrace. There is no rush here, no pressure to move faster, to keep up with the world. It is as if the river itself has asked you to stop and simply be, to listen to its quiet rhythm, to feel the gentle pull of its current, to understand that in this moment, you are part of something much larger than yourself. The river that carried the Egyptians, that sustained them, now carries you too, with its gentle flow. You take one last look at the water, its surface reflecting the soft light of the moon. The The stars above seem to nod in silent approval, as if they have always been here, waiting for this moment. And with that, you turn away from the river, walking slowly back along the path you came, the quiet stillness of the night wrapping itself around you like a blanket. There is nothing more to do now, nothing more to think. The journey has been long, but peaceful, and as you continue your walk through the moonlit landscape, you feel your mind quieting, your body relaxing. The night holds you gently, and the stars above, like ancient friends, offer their silent companionship. There is peace here, peace in the river, in the land, in the stars, and with it comes a deep, soothing sense of calm. Now, as you approach your resting place for the night, the world around you seems to settle into a rhythm that matches your own. The river hums softly behind you, the wind whispers through the trees, and the moonlight bathes everything in a gentle glow. The quiet of the night, the peace of the land, and the timelessness of the river are all around you, and as you lie down, your body and mind slowly ease into sleep. You realize that the night has worked its magic, gently lulling you into a state of tranquility, just as the ancient Egyptians were lulled by the rhythms of the Nile. And in this quiet, peaceful moment, you allow yourself to drift off, knowing that the world around you, like the river, will continue its slow, steady flow, carrying you with it.